Ms. Llewellyn? Jana, are you ready? Think we're ready? Ready?
All that good stuff. Are you ready? Okay. Oh, no, that's well, I'm not.
Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Temple City Council for August 20th, 2020. It's currently 5 p.m. Let's go ahead and get started with the invocation, which will be led by Mayor Pro Tem Judy Morales and the Pledge of Allegiance by City Secretary Jana Llewellyn.
Join me, please. Dear Lord, as we continue through this day, help us to look to Jesus, our overcomer, and find strength in him. We give you our worries and fears and every struggles, and we ask that you transform our thinking on things that are praiseworthy and thoughts that will honor and please you. Lord, we lift up our hurting country to you for your blessings today. We ask that you continue to have your hand on this nation and that leaders are godly examples in all that they do. Bless our leaders, both nationally and locally, our mayor, our city staff, our city council, with the wisdom to guide us in the right direction that will bring peace and harmony in our community. We pray for those who are hurting or lonely today, Father, that you will comfort them, and we pray for those who are ill, that you will heal them, especially those suffering from the coronavirus and other illnesses. Give blessings and protections to all that are the first responders, the doctors, the nurses, the police, and all those who are working to help and give comfort to those who are hurting. We pray that our minds and our hearts will not be shaken by circumstances, but that we will lean hard into your presence, your peace, and your love. Thank you for being our hope and our strength today. We thank you, Father, and we love you. We ask this all in the precious name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you both very much. Moving on to item 2 is the section for public comments. Citizens who desire to address the council on any matter may do so. As long as you signed up prior to this meeting, please limit your comments to 3 minutes, and no discussion or final action will be taken. And we have Mr. Milton Hensley has signed up.
Good afternoon, greetings to the Temple City Council, Mr. Mayor, and all those present. On October the 4th, the first Sunday of October, will be the 2020 Life Chain. This will be over 12 life change that we have had here in Temple. I invite all of you to attend and show that you're, among others, will try to stop the taking of 3,000 unborn babies each day of the year. My granddaughter last Sunday announced that they was going to have another little boy for me. This will be their third one. And I'll guarantee you, the happiness that they had, this baby is not up for abortion. She's about 15 months old with little 15 weeks. And she already knows the gender of the baby. And she said that she could see that little tiny, tiny heart beating at 15 weeks. And yet there are people that will take the child's life. I ask you to attend the meeting, and this will be at the old Chick-fil-A at 2 o'clock on Sunday. We'll start gathering anywhere from 1:45 on. It'll take 1 hour. All the precautions will be in place. Bring your mask. And I ask if you prepare the proclamation. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir. And Milton, just for the record, would you state your name and address?
I thought everybody knew.
We do.
Milton Hensley,
Yes, sir.
301 Mitchell Drive, Temple, Texas, 76501. Appreciate you remembering me of that. Thank
Bet.
you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Hensley,
All right.
have you been growing a beard during this pandemic? I don't believe I remember seeing you with the beard. Oh, there it is. Okay. Just checking.
Incognito.
That's right.
Very good, thanks. Do we have anybody on the virtual platform for public comments? Okay. Very good, then we'll move on to the next item, which is special recognitions. We have a couple of those tonight, and first I would like to read a proclamation to recognize Black Business Month, which is in August. So if I may. The proclamation reads, from the office of the mayor of the city of Temple, whereas Black Business Month was founded in August 2004 by Frederick E. Jordan, president of the F.E. Jordan and Associates, as a prominent engineering and construction firm, and John William Templeton, president of the Ventura, or I believe it says Venturata Economic Development Corporation. Whereas business owners who work long hours juggling family and career responsibilities and serving as community volunteers are integral to our country's prosperity and to the vibrancy of our community. Whereas both Jordan and Templeton believe that supporting African American business is key to lowering the rate of black unemployment, and whereas the optimism, creativity, and impressive achievements of black businesses is truly commendable, and we celebrate their vital role in our diverse community. Therefore, I, Timothy A. Davis, Mayor of the City of Temple, Texas, do hereby proclaim the month of August 2020 as Black Business Month in the City of Temple, Texas, and I urge all citizens to salute the businessmen and women for their contributions to the economic growth of our community and to continue to support them in their business endeavors. In testimony whereof, I witness my hand on the seal of the City of Temple, Texas, this 20th day of August, 2020. Is Lavina Sabra? Pardon? Yes, sir. Would you come down and accept this? That's all we can do in this time of social distancing. Otherwise, we would do pictures and all that. But thank you so much for allowing us the opportunity to present that. And if you would like to say anything to the crowd, please do so. Just state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Ronnie Russell. I'm out of Killeen, Texas, and I'm a 22-year Army service veteran, retired out of Fort Hood, Texas. And with Temple being the 51st largest city in the state of Texas, with a demographic of 74%, 16%, and 4%, just like the word said, he who has an ear, let him hear. What does that mean today? That means those who are in power who are giving information then take on the responsibility of ensuring and adhering to that information. National Black Business Month is very important should be for all people, because when you approach a demographic of people and you empower them, then the economy then grows, all in unison. And in the city of Temple, you have the oldest black business, which is Mr. Wayne Dawson Bradford of Dawson Funeral Homes. They have been in operation since 1920. And I'm not sure if you know that, and I would like to allow Mr. Wayne to come forward because we do have a plaque for him just for being in business. So as of right now, he's pretty much the oldest black business in Bell County.
Wow.
So you do have history within your city, and I appreciate you for staying in business, because everything that you do, because slavery ended in 1865, June 19th, 1865, and that business started in 1920. There's a lot of history here. But for you to remain open and to be open, there's a lot of people who look up to you. And once I found that information out, I had to physically, I was in sweatpants and a t-shirt, not dressed up, and I had to come and sit down, and your daughter gave me a lot of information. So my hat's off to you. I stand on your shoulders. Every black business that comes, even after you, should have a responsibility and should have recognition for you and your business for being open this long. And I urge you to look at your procurement and how are you receiving bids, whether they're hub vendors or whether they're veteran-owned businesses, and ensure there is diversity within those businesses and within those bids that you get for the city. Because now we are beginning to grow not just by population, but we're beginning to grow by equity in numbers as well as within the demographics. And I appreciate you, and I thank you too, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Sir, how many generations, what generation are you in the funeral home?
I'm first, she's second.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you for your longstanding commitment to Temple. Very much appreciated. Okay, moving on to another special recognition, if I may, and my understanding is the honoree for this recognition is not in attendance due to COVID-19, in an effort to keep the number of people down. But if I may, I would like to read this, and I think, Brian, you're going to accept this plaque. Is that right? This proclamation. This proclamation reads, from the office of the mayor of the city of Temple, whereas the city council, city staff, and city employees are honored to recognize Tammy Lyerly for her 33 years of dedicated service to the city of Temple. Whereas Tammy is a Temple native with roots that run deep in the community and an unparalleled knowledge of the city land use and Temple as a whole. Her great-grandparents, John Sr. and Sophia Mojica, owned and lived at 916 West Central Avenue, which they bought due to its location at the dead end next to the Santa Fe Railroad tracks, where John Sr. was a Santa Fe Railroad crew supervisor. The Mojicas expanded their family and property ownership around this block to include a store run by her great-grandmother and other houses, including one where Tammy's mother was born. Whereas the city acquired family property for the right-of-way to construct the Central Avenue Bridge over the railroad tracks in the 1990s, and has always made Tammy have a special sense of connection, resulting in unparalleled pride, love, and joy every time she drove over the bridge coming to work at City Hall. And whereas Tammy's hard work and dedication to her hometown can be seen throughout the built environment, to which she has left an indelible and positive imprint. Her proudest achievement while working for the city of Temple is making the city a better place to live, always turning frowns into smiles of citizens and colleagues. Some of her most notable plans and projects she has worked on include drawing the plans for Astor Drive, which was Tammy's first project, rezoning and replatting for Bird Creek Crossing, Temple Crossing, Avenue Town Center, and Country Lane Retirement Campus, realignment of West Adams Avenue and the creation of Adams Lane, as well as involvement with the extension of South 5th. And whereas in her retirement, Tammy plans on doing many home improvement projects, tap dancing, and joining the Tap Fit community. I never knew that about her. Whilst concentrating on artwork, including sculpting, making short films for social media, Zoom parties with her UK, Irish, European, and Canadian friends, and traveling once it's safe to do so. Now therefore I, Timothy A. Davis, Mayor of the City of Temple, Texas, in appreciation of her dedication to the City of Temple, Texas, do hereby recognize Tammy Lyerly, and I encourage all citizens to join with the City Council, City staff, and City employees in honoring Tammy for all of her invaluable contributions to the City of Temple. In testimony whereof, I witness my hand and the seal of the City of Temple, Texas, and proudly present this proclamation to Tammy Lyerly on this 20th day of August, 2020.
Brian, has she already retired?
Today.
Today?
Happened, of course, it's gotta be on a council day, right? A lot of council history with Tammy.
Yep.
Tammy, are you there?
Yes,
Hey, all right.
yes, I'm here.
Well-
Thank y'all so much.
Yes, well, thank you, Tammy, and we do have a fitting Zoom party for her tomorrow, so there will be more words spoken. I'll keep it short, but Tammy knows how much we appreciate her and her dedication, and you know the 7 years that I have worked with Tammy have been exceptional. You know, just I've learned a ton from her, and hopefully she could say the same, but I definitely can say that. So Tammy, thank you for
Yes.
everything that you've done. And yeah, enjoy your retirement. You've certainly earned it.
Thank you,
Congratulations.
Brian, and thank you, City Council. And I've been very proud to work for the city for the last 33 years. Thank y'all, everybody.
Councilmember Long, I think, wants to say something.
Tammy, I've known you for 20 years and loved working with you, and I can't believe you did this without telling me. This is Susan Long. I'll get you.
Well, you're invited to my Zoom party tomorrow.
No, I'll get you personally. Forget virtual.
Yes.
And the laugh. We will certainly miss that laugh.
Yeah.
So thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, very good. Now we'll move on to the consent agenda. All items listed under this section, which is called the consent agenda, are considered to be routine by the City Council and may be enacted by one motion. If discussion is desired by the council, any item may be removed from this consent agenda at the request of any council member and will be considered separately. Council, is there anything that you would like to remove from the consent agenda for separate consideration? No? All right, very good. Then, council, this is items 4A through 4AF, and I will entertain a motion for approval on this consent agenda.
1 second.
We are using a new system tonight.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. And we had a run through earlier, and it was semi-smooth, so y'all bear with us.
Okay.
Okay, very good. So we're prepared to accept a motion on item 4A through 4AF.
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have what's showing on the screen is that we have a motion by Councilmember Long.
I didn't do, but I hit the button just like I was told.
Then you did do.
You did do.
Very good. Again, bear with us. We have a motion then by Councilmember Long, and we have a second by Councilmember Walker. Council, if you would, please cast your vote. Very good. And I think everybody can see on the screen that this item was approved with a vote of 5 ayes and 0 nays. Very good. Thank y'all. Moving on to item number 5, which is the first reading and a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing an amendment to ordinance number 2019-4969 to allow for a 15-foot minimum front setback as a planned development condition on plus or minus 118.560 acres in the Maximo Merino survey, which is in abstract number 14, addressed as 8491 Hartrick Bluff Road in Bell County, Texas. Mr. Chandler.
All right. Thank you, Mayor and Council. So I'm actually going to present both code amendments. They're both related to Hartrick Ranch plan development. So it's actually an amendment to those two plan development districts. This is in response to the applicant, Turley and Associates, on behalf of Short-Term Lending, who's the developer. And so Planning and Zoning reviewed this on July 20th. So here you can see the map and location. And this is obviously south of FM 93. You'll recall when this was annexed about a year ago. And so east of Hartrick Bluff Road. And so these are the two phases that were submitted as separate zoning cases. And so one of them is 118 acres. The other to the south is 172 acres, and it's approximately 1.5 miles south of FM 93. And of course, annexation included Hartrick Bluff Road, so we had the contiguity required by state law. The property is still bordered by agricultural and rural land, and a small estate-sized subdivision immediately to the west of the 118-acre property. And so the developer proposes primarily single-family residential uses. And so just to remind you what this area looks like, top right, this is a view down Haymarket Drive, and that's the existing neighborhood that I mentioned. And so looking from Hartrick Bluff onto the property, and you can see there's essentially a barn in the top right-hand corner, and that is part of the property, and that was rezoned to a portion of general retail, but that's not affected by what's proposed here. And so really all we're talking about is for the single family to allow for a 15-foot front setback as opposed to the 20 that is allowed by the base zoning. And this is something that this developer often includes in his plan developments, and we certainly don't see any issues with that. And you know, the only time we would see an issue with that is if sidewalks were proposed, and the sidewalk network is not going to be impacted by the 15-foot setback. And so here we have a list of the single-family 2 standards from both plan development districts. And you can see number 5, which currently states the 20-foot front setback for the single-family 2, and just reducing that to 15 feet, allowing for a little more flexibility and larger backyards. 22 notices were mailed, and only one notice other than that from the property owner was returned, and that was an agreement, property immediately to the north of the larger tract to the south. So staff recommends approval of the PD amendment for both FY 20-28 ZC and 20-29 ZC. P&Z recommended approval at their July 20th meeting, and be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Chandler, you mentioned that doesn't interfere with the sidewalks. Is that because there are no sidewalks planned in that subdivision?
There are sidewalks proposed along collectors and strategic locations, but not on those local streets where those residential lots will front.
Thank you very much.
Bet.
Council, any questions or comments on this? I think that we failed to read in that this was also subject, that included in this item was a 2028 ZC.
Yes, sir.
So I apologize for not reading that in. Council, anything else on this?
Mayor, Mr. Chandler's presentation covered both items 5 and 6. So if you would like to read in item 6 at this time, I believe you could have a public hearing that covered both items.
Then let me do that. Then item number 6, in combination with item 5, is consider adopting an ordinance authorizing an amendment to ordinance number 2019-4968 to allow 15-foot front setback as a planned development condition on plus or minus 170.927 acres in the Maximo Marino Survey, abstract number 14, addressed as 9351 and 9352 Hartrick Bluff Road in Bell County, Texas. So I will open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on items number 5 and 6, please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record, or raise your hand on the virtual platform. Anybody on the virtual platform? Okay. Then at this time, I will close the public hearing and take any comments from the council. Anybody have anything on this one? All right, very good then. At this time, I'll entertain a motion on item number 5.
I move for adoption of item number 5.
Second.
Up in my system yet. We have a motion by Councilmember Williams, and we have a second by Councilmember Morales. Council, if you would, please cast your vote now. Item 5 passes with 5 ayes and 0 nays. Moving on to item number 6. I'll entertain a motion on item number 6.
I make a motion to approve item 6.
Second.
We have a motion on item number 6 by Councilmember Walker, a second by Councilmember Long. Council, if you would, please cast your votes. Item 6 passes 5-0. Moving on to item number 7 is the first reading and a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a rezoning from Temple Medical and Educational Zoning District, South Transect T-Med T-South to Planned Development, Temple Medical and Educational Zoning District, South Transect PD T-Med T-South with development and site plan approval to allow a storage facility located on lot number 4, T-Med South Development, replat number 1, addressed as 23445 Southeast HK Dodge and Loop, Temple, Texas, and this is case number FY-20-10-ZC. Mr. Chandler.
All right. Thanks again, Mayor. And this case was heard by Planning and Zoning Commission on July 20th as well. And just a little bit of background, since this is in the T-Med South zoning district, and just about South T-Med starting in 2015, funding was established for the framework or the master plan for T-Med South. And once the plan was created, then adopted in 2017, the first rezoning associated with T-Med South was also in 2017, and it was to accommodate the Everest Rehabilitation Hospital, which this property was also included, and we'll show you a map of that in a second. And then after the amendments to the T-Med code and establishment of the T-Med South zoning district, this property was the first to be included in that. And so the second TMed South zoning case that you all may recall last year, Blackland Commercial and the intersection of South Fifth Street for a property that may contain a future convenience store and fueling station. And so if you look to the right, you may remember that this is an exhibit from the TMed South Master Plan. And so the area that's circled is our first TMed South property. And so if you look at the aerial and the blue crosshatched area, that's what we're talking about. It's a lot adjacent to the railroad. And you can see the Everest Rehab Hospital just to the west of the newly extended First Street. And so just a little more background about this particular piece of property, and that the proposed self-storage is not a use that's allowed by right in TMed South, and so thus the request for a planned development district. And this is for Lot 4, Block 1 of TMed South replat number 1. And so the site plan, as mentioned, indicates a self-storage facility. A PD does require a site plan, and I will show that to you in a second. Our Development Review Committee did review this project on July 2nd. No issues were identified at that time, and the reinvestment zone, which TMed is one of the parks within the reinvestment zone, and certainly a number of public infrastructure projects have already been completed in TMed by the RZ, as well as others that are proposed. So they reviewed this electronically. It was submitted to them on June 19th, and it was also discussed at their June 24th meeting, and no issues were identified. And so if you look to the right, this is the proposed site plan. You've got the loop at the top here, and so this is obviously the north. So it would consist of 3 different buildings. A building 1 consisting of 80,000 square feet, and would be a climate control maximum building height of 30 feet, and so internal access by internal corridors. Building 2 would just be your typical drive-up storage, single story, so adjacent to the railroad. And then building 3 would include RV storage and would also be single story. And just as a reminder, Planned Development District is a flexible overlay, and the main takeaway is there's a binding site plan that is part of this request, which we've just reviewed. And so as a reminder, this is T-South is one of the transects, as they're called, kind of the sub-districts within TMed, and the development site plan was submitted with the rezoning. And then to the right, this is just you're not going to be able to see all that language, and I'm not going to read it to you, but bottom line is those are criteria for Section 3.4 for planned development districts, and staff's analysis confirms that it does meet all the criteria. The proposal is for 3 acres, and the public review of the development site plan. And so staff is determining compliance with Section 3.4. With the zoning map, as we mentioned, even though the self-storage use is prohibited in TMed, you'll see in a minute when we show the elevations that the architectural renderings would be compliant with the TMed articulation requirements, and their landscaping would meet TMed standards as well, which for a site like this is 15% of the overall site must be landscaped. Also, I think it's important to point out that the intent of this project is to provide a buffer for the development proposed to the west. So same developer that did the Everest Hospital, same owner. They are also proposing multifamily as well as a hotel and general retail in the lots immediately to the west. And so this, if approved, would serve as really a buffer primarily for the residential and hotel between the railroad and those proposed developments. We recognize that this is an important gateway, and we'll show you the elevations once again that would meet the TMED requirements. And so we're showing partial compliance with the zoning, because the use, of course, is not allowed, but the other standards would be met. You look at the future land use map, does show this as TMED. And so water and sewer are available. 12-inch water line on HK Dodge and Loop, 8-inch sewer along the south property line. Thoroughfare plan and trails. The Loop is an expressway, and South First Street is actually a major arterial. And so it's certainly compliant with that. The trails master plan also shows pedestrian access being extended beyond South First Street and ultimately connecting to the Friars Creek Trail to the west. So here's an aerial just showing what the site looks like today, and a photo looking at the site. And to the north, just looking across Loop 363, and to the south is currently undeveloped. And to the west, you can see Everest Rehab Hospital in the background, as well as Baylor Scott & White and Temple College. And to the east, the Railroad Bridge. And so just a quick look at the TMED South standards. On the left, minimum lot width of 18 feet, maximum front setback of 47 feet. Bottom line is they would have to meet these standards. To the right, just looking at what uses are allowed in TMED South. And we've highlighted, of course, the medical uses. That is one of the primary purposes for TMED. And so looking at the renderings, you can see this would be top left-hand corner, what you would essentially see from the loop. And the bottom, this would be an interior shot of what those would look like just from the private drives to access the individual units. And on the right, just another site plan showing lots 1, 2, and 3. As I mentioned, future retail, but future retail proposed on lot 1, and they've actually received a permit approval for hardscape that meets the site plan approval, meets TMED standards, the future hotel lot 2, and future apartments on lot 3. And so just looking at the TMED South landscaping standards that I mentioned they would have to meet, with parking on the side, that's 15% of the overall site would need to be landscaped. And then you can just see the specific standards in terms of trees and shrub requirement. So 9 notices were sent out to property owners within 200 feet. 1 notice was returned in agreement, and that was the property to the east, directly across the Union Pacific Railroad, and no responses were returned in opposition. And just as a follow-up related to RZ project review, the city manager did circulate those plans to RZ on June 19th, and we have not heard any concerns. In terms of the compliance summary, yes for PD compliance, partial for future land use plan and surrounding zoning, and public facilities are available and compliance with Thoroughfare plan as well. And so staff's recommendation is for approval subject to the following 5 conditions, and that's that the site may be developed with a self-storage facility or any other permitted use within the TMED South transect, and that development does not commence until after construction begins on the one of the adjacent 3 lots that we talked about, and so that we can ensure that there would be some other development and not just self-storage, since this is the same developer, same property owner, and the purpose of this is for buffering the other development. And so landscape plan must have the enhanced landscaping also on the southern boundary in accordance with TMED South standards, that the Director of Planning and Development, myself, may have authorization to make minor changes as needed. Substantial changes would have to come back to Planning and Zoning and City Council. So at the July 20th meeting, Planning and Zoning Commission voted 7-0 to recommend approval. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. And I understand that the property owner was going to try to log in, and I assume that he's available if you have questions from him.
Good. This item is subject to a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this item may do so. Please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record, or raise your hand on the virtual platform. Okay, there being none, then I'll close this public hearing. Council, any discussion on this item?
Yes, I do have something I'd like to add. I'd like to thank you, Brian, and the developer, if he or she is available, for item number 2 on the 2 pages back, not commencing construction until the other 2 properties are started development. That's a really good addition. Thank you.
Mr. Chandler,
Sir.
the building 3, which will be the RVs, et cetera,
Right.
will those have garage-type doors, closures on them?
Yes, sir. Those
Very
are to be fully enclosed.
Very good, thank you.
Council, anything else? Okay. Very good, and I'll entertain a motion on item number 7.
I'd like to make a motion to approve item 7 as presented by Mr. Chandler.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Long, a second by Councilmember Walker. Council, if you would, please cast your vote. Item number 7 passes 5-0. Moving on to item number 8 is the first reading in a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance amending the police officer classifications of certified police officers. Chief Reynolds.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. It's a pleasure to be before you. This slide was actually prepared, this slide deck by Tara. I'm not Ms. Raymore. It's good to be before you. This is exciting.
Your first presentation, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am. We'll cross our fingers. Chapter 143.021 requires council established by ordinance classifications in the police and fire departments and the number of positions in each classification. As part of an overview, on August 13th, City Council adopted fiscal year 21 budget, which includes funding for 1 new school resource officer position for Belton ISD and 3 community-oriented police and services COPS positions that were awarded under grant. The COPS hiring program, known as CHIP, has awarded a grant to the Community-Oriented Policing Services Program for 3 additional police officer positions. They will provide up to 75% of the entry-level salary and fringe benefits with a maximum of $125,000 per officer position. Requires a minimum 25% cash match. The official start date of the award was July 1st, 2020, and the award end date is June 30th, 2023. Belton ISD is opening a new high school, Lake Belton High School. The City of Temple PD provides school resource officers through agreement with Belton ISD. And they pay for 68% of the salary and benefits of the new officer assigned to SRO duties, $3,600 per vehicle for use and travel, and 1/2 of all required training. Staff recommends approval of the request by ordinance to add a total of 4 police officer positions, 3 related to the grants position, 1 for the SRO position at Belton ISD. The second and final reading is scheduled for September 3rd, 2020. That's just a chart that covers it. You can see the only additions are to the officer rank, officer positions, moving from 105 to 109. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chief. This item is also subject to a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this item may do so. Please raise your hand on the virtual platform if desired. There being none, I will close the public hearing. Counselor, any discussion or thoughts on this item? Very good. In this time of defunding the police department in various cities, I'm proud to say that that we are not doing that. City of Temple Police Department, we believe in what you guys do, the services you provide for the city and the citizens. Thank you for that, and we're proud to stand behind you.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Appreciate that greatly.
All right, then at this time, I'll entertain a motion on item number 8.
I move for adoption of item number 8.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Williams. We have a second by Mayor Pro Tem Morales. Council, if you would, please cast your vote. This item passes 5-0. Moving on to item number 9. Consider adopting a resolution approving the final plat of Highland Park Estates Phase 2 on 10.824 plus or minus acres of 40-lot, 3-block, 3-tract residential subdivision with a developer requested exception to the Unified Development Code, Section 8.3, parkland dedication to allow a private park in lieu of public parkland located west of Drexel Loop and north of Lakeview Lane. Mr. Chandler.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. The applicant for this, Belton Engineering, is on behalf of the developer Stellar Improvements Corporation. Planning and Zoning reviewed this on July 20th. And of course, the reason that you all are seeing that is just the exception to the subdivision standards. And so you can see that this plat, FY 20-19, is really just a proposed extension of Highland Park Estates, Phase 2. And so here you can see Hartrick Bluff to the east and existing homes within Highland Park Estates. And so the exception, Section 8.3, Parkland Dedication, and this is due to the fact that it is proposed as a private park, which our code still requires that council approve that as an exception. But we'll talk a little bit about the amount of acreage and the type of amenities and the amount of investment that is proposed by the developer. Bottom line is park staff does support the requested exception, and the developer proposes an investment of $13,800, which is basically almost $5,000 more than what the park fees would require if the developer just paid those park fees. And so here you can see this is for 40 lots in Phase 2, and this is just a breakdown of what is proposed and the cost for the amenities that include picnic tables and benches, bike rack, grill, and then just the construction costs. And here's a site plan of the proposed park. The tract is 0.443 acres, and you can see be landscaped with grass, picnic tables, as we talked about, benches, bike rack, grill, trash receptacles, which may not be exciting but are necessary. So the DRC reviewed this on March 31st and deemed it administratively complete on July 15th. Water will be provided the subdivision through existing 6-inch and 8-inch, as well as an additional proposed 6-inch water line, and sewer provided through an existing 10-inch and proposed 8-inch sanitary sewer lines. And then Tract C has been identified to address drainage. So here's the plat, and you can see Tract A here along Fairfax Drive. And Tract A, of course, is the park. Staff recommends approval of the developer requested exception. And so at the July 20th meeting, P&Z also recommended approval unanimously, 8-0, subject to the park layout and the park value statement exhibits that we reviewed earlier. And I'd be happy to answer any questions, and Tammy Lyerly is on as well if you had any questions for her. So kind of anticlimactic for me to give her last presentation. I didn't quite do it justice.
Council, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, Mr. Chandler, one question.
Yes, sir.
If they were doing a contribution to the city towards park fees, it'd be $8,500. They're willing to put in $13,700 or whatever
Yes, sir.
in equipment. Is that something that the Parks Department sort of looked at and said, yes, that is sufficient?
That's correct. And so as they followed the normal procedure to have the list of the proposed amenities and the cost and the site plan to evaluate and make sure that it's still meeting the intent of the public parkland dedication requirements.
Very good. Thank you.
Welcome.
Anything else? Okay, very good. Then I will entertain a motion on item number 9.
I'll make a motion to approve item 9.
Second.
Have a motion by Councilmember Walker and a second by Councilmember Williams. Council, if you would, please cast your vote. Item 9 passes 5-0. Moving on to item number 10 is to consider adopting a resolution authorizing the acceptance of a donation of 2.24 acre tract of land legally described as Lot 13, Block 2 of the final plat of Enterprise Business Park Phase 2 from the Economic Development Corporation. Ms. Myers.
Thank you, Mayor. Would you please also read in item number 11, as my presentation covers both items as they're related?
I will. Item 11 reads, to consider adopting a resolution authorizing an economic development agreement with Lingfeld Lumber for the relocation of their operations from downtown Temple to a 15.3 acre site on Lucius McKelvey Road near the intersection of Enterprise Road in the Temple Industrial Park for the construction of an expanded facility.
Thank you, Mayor. So as you mentioned, these two items cover a proposed economic development agreement with Langfeld Lumber. The project, as proposed, is a relocation of the current Langfeld Lumber operations, which are currently located in downtown Temple on North 13th Street, to a new location in the Temple Industrial Park. The site that they are proposing to move to is a 15.3 acre site on Lucius McKelvey Road near the intersection with Enterprise Road. The company plans to invest at least $5.2 million in the construction of 4 new buildings, an outside storage facility, and other site-related expenses. They plan to retain 45 existing employees, and the new campus will also provide room to operate to have their operations more efficient, and will provide room for growth in the future. The material terms of the economic development agreement are as follows. Langfeld's obligations would be to purchase approximately 15.3 acre site that I mentioned on Lucius McKelvey for the agreed upon purchase price of $512,000. They would be required to invest $5.2 million in real and personal property improvements on the site, retain their 45 existing employees for a period of 5 years. They must commence construction of this facility not later than 12 months after the date on which the transfer of the property is closed, and complete that construction no later than 24 months after closing. The EDA does provide for an extension authorization for the city manager for an additional 180 days. Any further extensions would come back for council consideration. The city's obligations under the proposed EDA include conveying the 15.3 acre site to Langfeld, and we are also proposing the acceleration of the construction of a planned maintenance road for the proposed enterprise elevated storage tank. That project is currently in our financial plan for fiscal year 2024. So this proposal would simply accelerate the timing of the roadway. The water tower would stay would stay as currently planned in 2024. We would also enhance the road to be able to handle truck traffic and allow Langfeld to use the access road for ingress and egress into their site. So here's an aerial of the proposed site. You can see that in yellow. I guess my pointer won't work, but you can also see the proposed location of the elevated storage tank there on the southern portion of the site. Keep in mind that you've got to tilt your head to look north. The site plan for the proposed project is here. So as I mentioned, this area will accommodate their immediate planned investment of $5.2 million, but will also allow room for growth for additional investment in the future. The other item to mention, item number 11, is relating to the donation of a 2.4 acre tract from the Economic Development Corporation. The southernmost portion of the planned, the 15.3 acre tract, is currently owned by the Temple Economic Development Corporation. So the proposal is for them to donate that tract to the city, and then we can then convey as part of one single economic development agreement to Langfeld. This agreement is recommended by, has been reviewed and is recommended by the Economic Development Board of Directors, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. Council, any questions on this project? I think we've seen it a number of times. Okay, there being no discussion, then I'll entertain a motion on item number 10.
Motion to approve item, you called just for 10.
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to make a motion to approve item 10 as presented by Ms. Myers.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Long. We have a second by Mayor Pro Tem Judy Morales. Council, please cast your vote. Item 10 passes with 4 yeses and 1 abstention. Moving on to item number 11. Council, any comments on this particular item? If not, then I'll entertain a motion on item number 11.
Mayor, I'll also make a motion on item 11 as presented, a motion to approve item 11 as presented by Ms. Myers.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Long and a second by Councilmember Williams. Council, please cast your vote. That item passes 4 yeses and 1 abstention. Moving on to item number 12 is to consider adopting a resolution making a recommendation to the U.S. Board on Geographic Names regarding the naming of Summers Mill with an O to Summers Mill with a U. Ms. Myers.
Thank you, Mayor. So the director of the Summers Mill Retreat and Conference Center, that's Summer with the U, submitted a proposal to the U.S. Board on Geographic Names to officially correct the spelling of an unincorporated place name, which currently appears on federal maps as Summers Mill with an O. So Summers Mill is located within the city's ETJ. BGN, so the Board of Geographic Names, is responsible by law for standardizing geographic names for use by the federal government, and they do have a process that accepts proposals to name unnamed geographic features or change the names of geographic features that are already named in their database. The local name does appear to be Summers Mill with a U, which is based on the conference center name, a nearby road name, and any other sources. According to the grist mills of Central Texas, the Summers Mill community grew up around a grist mill that was built shortly after the Civil War, and in 1879 it was acquired by DeWitt Clinton Summers. Mr. Summers was listed in the 1880 census of Bell County as manager of the gin, and then in 1881 he was appointed postmaster. The mill was destroyed by a flood in 1921, but was rebuilt a decade later, and the operations continued to around 1970. The mill was later acquired by Foundation, which now operates the mill and surrounding buildings as the Summers Mill Retreat and Conference Center. There's also a Texas historical marker that was dedicated on the site that has the name referred to as Summers Mill with a U. So there's lots of evidence locally that the correct spelling of the name was intended to be Summer with a U. This is you can see at the bottom portion of that map where it's located. It's just barely in the city's extraterritorial jurisdiction. The BGN does place importance on local opinion when it votes on these proposals, and so they have reached out to the City of Temple for input from the City Council on this name change. So we are requesting tonight that you consider adopting a resolution that either supports or opposes or takes no objection would be another option to the name change. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Good, thank you. Council, any thoughts or questions on this?
I never knew there was a discrepancy.
I didn't
I
either.
always thought it was with you.
I actually used to live out there. Yeah. It's always with you, so.
Mayor, I think we should support it rather than the third option you mentioned.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So if you would just need to make that motion, and we will make the resolution clear.
Then, any further discussion? I don't think so. Okay. So, with that, I'll entertain a motion on item number 12.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the name change to Summers Mill with a U rather than an O.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Councilmember Long. Councilmember Walker has seconded that motion. Council, if you would please vote. I lost it, but I'm assuming it passed.
You may have lost it, I didn't get it.
There we go. Item 12 passes 5-0. Item 13 reads to consider adopting a resolution authorizing an amendment to the Economic Development Agreement with Turner Barringer Temple One LLC for the redevelopment of the Han Hotel, Arcadia Theater, and Public Services Building.
So it's not many days that I get to tie with Brian Chandler on how many presentations I do. So I'm excited to present this last one tonight. So as Mayor mentioned, this presentation and this action item covers the proposed amendment to the Economic Development Agreement that is intended to foster the redevelopment of the Han Hotel and the Arcadia Theater. Council will recall that Turner Barringer is proposing a mixed-use redevelopment of three downtown buildings: the Han Hotel, the Arcadia Theater, and the Sears Building, sometimes also referred to as the Professional Building. The Han, under this proposal, would be renovated into 4 lease apartments, which would be retained and managed by Turner Barringer. The lower floors would be redeveloped into retail or commercial space. The Arcadia Theater would be renovated into an event space that would accommodate everything from live music to lunch meetings, and it would be able to keep its history as a performing arts venue under the proposal. The Sears Building, much like the Han, would have first floor. The first floor would be office and retail space, and then the second floor would be additional residential units. There's also a portion of the Sears building that's across the alley that would be converted into residential units as well. Under the proposed economic development agreement, or the existing economic development agreement, the city's obligations are to convey the Han Hotel and the Sears buildings to the Turner Behringer team. We have committed to provide reimbursement for the environmental remediation that's needed to support the redevelopment, and that includes asbestos and lead paint abatement in the estimated amount of $300,000. We've committed to a strategic investment zone grant for facade improvement, signage, demo, and design work in an amount of $700,000, as well as including the waiving of building permit fees in an amount up to $6,000. We've also committed to lease the parking lot at the corner of 4th Street and Central Avenue to the Turners for use in support of the project for a term of 50 years at $1 per year, payable in advance. We also have committed to ensure that adequate wastewater service is available to support the proposed redevelopment, and to design and construct certain public infrastructure improvements in support of the project, including intersection enhancements, landscaping, signage, dry utility relocations, as set forth in the Downtown City Center Concept Design Plan. This is actually a three-way economic development agreement between the city, a nonprofit organization that owns the Arcadia, and the Turner Behringer team. The Arcadia nonprofit board has committed to convey the Arcadia to the Turners as part of this redevelopment. They have also supported the amendment that I'm going to talk to you about tonight. The Turner team's obligations include accepting the properties, completing at least $12 million worth of improvements to the properties. Again, that covers the adaptive reuse of these historic buildings into retail, residential, and entertainment spaces. They've agreed to complete the improvements to the Han and Arcadia not later than 3 years from the day that the buildings are conveyed to them, and the improvements to the Sears building would be completed no later than 4 years from the date of conveyance. The current EDA also includes a clause regarding ongoing discussions between the parties regarding the feasibility of jointly constructing a parking garage on the city-owned parking lot that's east of North 4th Street and north of East Central Avenue. City staff has been working over the last several months to reach an agreement with the Turners based on the clause in our current EDA regarding the jointly constructed parking lot. While we still do have some additional discussions that are necessary to enter into a final lease agreement, we are asking for an amendment tonight to the EDA to more fully set out the proposed terms and conditions of that potential jointly constructed parking garage. Turner Behringer has also informed city staff that an additional incentive is necessary to make the project financially viable, due most importantly to the significant expenses associated with rehabilitating these historic structures, specifically the life safety improvements that are required for the high-rise designation of the Han Hotel. The proposed amendment to the EDA also provides additional funding in the amount of $2 million payable in annual payments of $200,000 over the term of 10 years. This payment is conditioned upon the Turner Behringer's completion of at least $12 million in property improvements to the Han, Arcadia, and Sears building. So this is the incentive payment that we talked about at your last meeting during the amendment to the Reinvestment Zones Financing Plan. This is a performance-based incentive so that the improvements must be completed and online and on the tax rolls, and must come on for at least $12 million on the tax rolls. We anticipate that the taxes that will be generated from this redevelopment will be approximately $3 million over the course of the 10-year period, and so this incentive would rebate a portion of that back to the Turners. And I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Council, any comments?
So she's saying that, if I'm understanding
Ma'am?
correctly, can I speak?
This is not open to public
Oh,
hearing.
it's not open. Oh, okay.
No, ma'am. Thank you, though.
I can certainly answer your questions after the meeting.
Okay.
Thank you. I don't mean to be rude. It's just
No, I
part of the
like that.
process. Okay. Council, any thoughts on this?
I think it's a shame not to have some questions and discussions on a project this big and this good, but I don't have any.
Well, we have been working on this for a long time.
That's
so-
why I don't have
Y'all
it.
probably have our question now.
Yeah.
The city of Temple purchased the Han in, I believe, 2006. And we've been working with the Turners on this current proposal since late 2017. We've done a lot, that both parties have done a lot of due diligence and a lot of analysis on the feasibility. This is a big project and one that's complex. The rehabbing of historic structures that have been vacant for many, many years is not as easy as a greenfield development, but we both, the city staff as well as the Turner Barringer team, both see this project as important to downtown. We feel like these are iconic structures in our downtown, and so we are both committed to doing the works necessary. Anything that we can do to make the project successful within reason, we're committed to doing that.
You spent a lot of hours, just sleepless nights. I can't even begin to imagine how much time you've put into this. You and your staff really should be commended because y'all didn't. There were so many opportunities to let this slip away, and you didn't. You hung on tight, and I really think this is going to be a game changer for downtown.
I'm ready to toast to the groundbreaking.
I know you are.
Which, by the way, assuming the favorable consideration of this EDA tonight, we do anticipate ground to break in the fall of this year.
That's 2 weeks from now.
In the late fall.
Oh, okay.
Probably in the October timeframe.
Mayor,
I'm glad that fall is 2 weeks from now, by the way. I'm hot.
Yeah.
Mayor, since Jana won't let us speak when we're gonna vote, I'll just speak now. I said 2 weeks ago at council that we needed balloons tonight because this is so great and so important. So we don't have balloons, but it's great and important.
Gloria doesn't like balloons.
Oh, that's right, I forgot.
Next now, a balloon lady.
We have virtual balloons.
Yeah, I remember actually reading about this when the city bought it back in '06.
Yes.
And, the quotes from the staff and council at that time, they were so excited, and this thing's going to be a game changer. And here we are 14 years later going, this is going to be a game changer. So, I think this is the group to do it. We've talked to, I think this is the third group, and they have a history of successful renovations in buildings like this. And like you said, Jessica, I think it will be a game changer. And with everything that's been invested downtown, this makes sense.
This will be the final touch. This will take this over the top.
Well, our item 14 might be the final touch too.
Sure.
So, yeah, we'll see. So,
Okay.
One thing I just want to make clear, I met earlier this week with Linda Molstrom, who is the chair of the Arcadia board, and she was not able to come to the meeting tonight, but she wanted me to make sure to let you know that she is they are in support of this project and are looking forward to this moving forward. So she wanted to be here tonight, but wasn't able to attend.
thank you, Ms. Myers. If there's no further discussion, then I'll entertain a motion on item 13.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion by Councilmember Williams and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Morales.
Mess that up.
Council, please cast your vote. This item passes.
Mayor, I hate to be a downer, but we got, if it matters for the record, the names for the motion.
Did I misstate those?
No, you didn't.
I didn't even touch it, and it said
can
that I
make the
moved it.
correction.
I tried
Okay.
I tried to, and Wendell jumped in.
Okay.
So the names are wrong.
Okay,
I don't know that it matters. We still
We
need
can-
balloons, and it's great.
sure. We can fix it on the back end. Okay. Either way, whoever made the motion or the second, the item does pass 5-0. And then moving on to the last item on tonight's agenda is to consider adopting resolutions authorizing a tax abatement agreement with VKDM Investment LLC, which will cover increases in the taxable value of real property on an approximately .0758 acre tract of land designated as tax abatement reinvestment zone number 41, And item 14B is an economic development agreement with VKDM Investment LLC for the rehabilitation of 103 East Central Avenue in Temple, Texas. And item 14C, which is an authorization of an extension of the completion time permitted under the Chapter 380 Development Agreement with VKDM Investment LLC for a Strategic Investment Zone grant for 103 East Central Avenue within the Downtown Strategic Investment Zone corridor. Ms. Davis.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. That was a lot to read, but that's because there's a lot going on with this item.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
there are 3 resolutions that you're being asked to consider with this, and this is across the street from the Han and Arcadia in that same area. So there really is a lot going on in downtown that we're very excited about. You are being asked to consider 3 resolutions. The first is a tax abatement agreement on tax abatement reinvestment zone number 41. That's the item that I spoke with you about last week, and that did finally pass. Earlier in your meeting, it was on your consent agenda. So that reinvestment zone number 41 has been created. The second item is an economic development agreement for the rehabilitation of 103 East Central Avenue, which is the location of the SBJST, or Historic Professional Building. And the third item is the extension of the completion time permitted under a current Strategic Investment Zone grant. So a little background, and again, I won't go into a lot of detail because we did discuss this last week, but VKDM Investment is planning to invest $3.8 million for the rehabilitation of the 23,000 square foot historic professional SPJST building, and they propose to add retail, 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, and various amenities as part of that redevelopment. And the project scope does include interior renovation, including fire suppression, facade improvements, and an elevator installation. And this is a rendering of the intended redevelopment. And the first item, 14A, is the tax abatement. And the proposed agreement is for a 10-year tax abatement on the increased taxable value at a declining rate. So years 1 through 5, it was a 100% proposed abatement, decreasing 10% each year, ending in year 10 with the 50% abatement. The abatement period would begin in the first full calendar year after either the certificate of occupancy is issued or the final inspection is made, whichever applies in the case. The city's economic development policy criteria and guidelines are met, and the proposed improvements fall within the definition of eligible facilities, and the agreement will include all of the required tax code provisions. Item 14B on your agenda is the economic development agreement. Under that proposed agreement, VKDM agrees to invest at least $3.8 million in real and personal property improvements. It's hard to say. They agree to obtain a building permit by October 30th of this year and substantially complete the improvements by October 30th of next year. The city manager is authorized to extend the completion date for up to 180 days, but any additional extensions would require council approval. Under the proposal, the city agrees to lease to VKDM for $1 per year the property located at 301 East Central Avenue, 5 South 6th Street, and 7 South 6th Street for parking to serve the proposed development. That lease will begin on the date of substantial completion and end either 10 years after that date or after the completion of a public parking garage within a 3-block radius, whichever occurs first. The city also agrees to reimburse to VKDM $50,000 once repairs in at least that amount have been made and verified to the parking lots that we are renting to them, and also once improvements to 103 East Central Avenue, the main project, are substantially complete. If the city builds a parking garage on the leased properties, then we will work with them to provide interim parking during construction, and the city also agrees to work with VKDM to identify other economic development opportunities in downtown Temple. The third item, 14C on your agenda, is for an extension of the Strategic Investment Zone grant that was authorized by the council on April 4th of last year. That agreement provides a one-to-one matching grant in the maximum amount of $145,000. That agreement required that a building permit be obtained by October 30th of last year, and that the improvements be substantially complete by April 30th of this year. Clearly, neither of those dates were met due to difficulties in obtaining historic tax credits, as well as impacts from COVID-19. So staff does recommend approval of the extension of the due dates, with the revised requirements being that the building permit be obtained by October 30th of this year, and that the improvements be substantially complete by October 30th of next year. This proposal does align with both your strategic plan goals and your strategic plan commitments. The potential fiscal impact by this project is the possibility of abating $210,758. And also, the city will receive $10 for the lease of the property and would reimburse up to $50,000, as we discussed, for repairs of the parking lot. And no additional funding is required for the extension of the CIS grant. That's already been programmed. And staff does recommend adoption of the 3 resolutions as presented, and the RZ board did listen to this item and approved it at its July 29th meeting. And I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Council, any questions on any of these 3 items? Take these items one at a time? No, we can do them all in one? Okay, very good. Then, at this time, I'll entertain a motion on items 14, A, B, and C.
Mayor, I make a motion to approve as presented by Kathy.
Have a motion?
Second.
Have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Morales. We have a second by Councilmember Wendell Williams. Council, if you would, please cast your vote. Items 14, A, B, and C all pass 5-0. Thank you all very much for attending tonight's meeting, and this meeting is adjourned.
How are you, Jana?